Thank you. I think everyone can agree that there are certain places that drones can't fly. So when we were doing the 2016 FAA extension, Section 2209 envisioned a process by which operators of critical infrastructure facilities could seek approval to create no-fly zones for safety and security reasons. But the process, unfortunately, envisioned by 2209 remains unresolved. I know Mr. Davis had brought this up in the during the first panel, and I've worked across the aisle with members of this committee, including Representative Sanford, to improve the language and create a system that works for the FAA, for UAS operators, and for critical infrastructure stakeholders. It doesn't require facilities to apply for a designation, and it doesn't ask them to disclose any information about the facility that would compromise security. All it would do is make public the geographic location and boundaries of a critical infrastructure airspace designation. I think it's only fair that stakeholders have the opportunity to comment on possible changes to the airspace. It will only work if these designations reside in a central repository so that operators know where to look to find out where they can and can't fly. So, Mr. Elwell, what role, if any, does the FAA see for Section 2209 authorities under the new UAS integration pilot program?
So 2209, we've been working diligently on 2209 within the constructs of our own authority, the authority that we have today in 99.7, I think it is. And as a result, mostly working with DoD, we have over 900 of these sensitive facilities that we have restricted drone use. To your point, they've created these spaces where drones can't go. We do have some limitations on our authority to draw those lines. We have a couple of security locations that we have collaborated with Department of Interior, right? I'm gonna let Earl take over the details on this, but we're conscious of it, and we're with you. We want to have a database of these places that we want to have a sort of no drone activity, and we're working on it. And Earl?
Yes, so to build a little bit more on Mr. Elwell's comments, we've been working with the Department of Energy, the Department of Defense, and the Department of Interior to designate additional areas as restricted areas for drone use at low altitude. In addition to that, we've been working with DHS and meeting with their stakeholder groups to get the feedback from their infrastructure stakeholder folks that they put together after 9/11 to understand what their needs are and how we might categorize what facilities would need protection of these particular no drone zones. One of the things that we're looking at is education as well. Not only education of the users and asking people to stay away from these facilities, but it's also a matter of education that in many cases, most of these facilities are already in restricted airspace where these operations are not supposed to be occurring as they are today. So we're looking at their other opportunities such as our ID and tracking methods so that we can identify the people who are already violating these and then we can have additional counseling and education based on that.
All right, because this is very important that we do move forward on this, because I've received a lot of comments about the lack of clarity and really needing to move forward on this. In the remaining time I have, I just want to throw this question out there quickly. With the UAS integration pilot program, the issue of enforcement, how is that going to work with local? Is there going to be local enforcement? It really lies with enforcement. Really lies. The authority lies with the FAA. How is that possibly going to work? So, Mr. Elwell.
So as I was talking about earlier, finding that balance, and as we go forward in the pilot project and they get started, we need to balance the needs of the localities with our responsibility to operate safely and manage the navigable airspace. The pilot program is going to provide an opportunity for us to work with the local jurisdictions to understand their needs in managing their areas of responsibility, and of course public safety, privacy, trespass, those kinds of things within the low-level airspace that the applicant wants to use. And we'll work with those communities on setting the time, place, and manner restrictions to meet their needs and not disrupt the safe and efficient use of the airspace. And those restrictions that would be in the pilot program enacted by the local government by legislation or regulation would be monitored and enforced locally, and FAA would just continue to enforce any federal law.
I think this is going to be, as you allude to, difficult to do, so it's going to be something important that we keep, this committee keep oversight over that. Thank you. I'll yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Ms. Napolitano.
Mr.